His name is Steve Pedigo.
This is Steve Pedigo on Rense.com, and what gets me is he has the cure for the golf without Coexit 9500, and this is the most evilest thing that could have ever happened to the golf. They've killed the golf. I mean, you got shrimp with no eyes, crabs with no pinchers. You have different things going on right now. This is only part one, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but he has a method to remove the oil safely without the destructiveness of the Coexit 9500. The money junkies have taken over this. They don't care about the people down there. They don't care about your life down there. They don't care what the Coexit does to you if you swim out there in the Gulf. They don't give a damn of anything that's going on. This is how evil this really, really is of what's going down there. He has a solution that makes the oil float instead of sinking it out of sight, which Coexit does. Coexit 9500, all it does is bathe the top and sink the oil down as it goes down. The problem is everything in the Gulf that lives is living on the bottom that feeds everything else that swims around in between. And they've already, like I said, have shrimp with no eyes, crabs with no legs, deformities out of yin yang. I mean, this is just evil of what these people have done. I mean, it's and the title of this is How BP Killed the Gulf and Hid the Body. And that's exactly what they did. They hid everything. He has come up, I mean, the people down there have actually, the governors and stuff along Louisiana and everything, seen his experiments of how he can remove it. He is actually, it's not an experiment anymore. He uses his method worldwide over the planet. There's other countries that are going, come here and take care of our oil problem. And he is. And what it is this chemical that he uses that makes the oil float. He throws hay on it. The hay soaks up the oil and also the chemical he uses to make it float, like a dispersant, but it's not a dispersant in its own way. It makes the oil float. It doesn't disperse it in the same way that Coexit does. And all you do is dip the hay off the bottom and take it away. It's that simple. And this is a crime. This is a humanity crime beyond all humanity crimes. I mean, killing the Gulf. They have killed the Gulf Stream that goes up to England. And England is wondering why they're getting so cold weather and everything. Because the warm water normally flows up along the Atlantic coast and goes up and around England and keeps them fairly warm. Is stopped. They've shut it off with this oil, and it's still spilling out there. That's the whole thing. It's still coming up. They drilled the hole next to a salt dome, and they fractured it, and they fractured the body of the bottom around it. And this oil, with so much pressure coming up, because the mother lode of all oil taps is still bubbling up as of today, from 2010 today, and it's just destroyed. And they're still spraying the Coexit 9500. This is what the crime is. They're still using this toxic chemical, so toxic it's causing mutations and everything in the Gulf. They have basically shut down the fishing and crabbing and shrimping of the Gulf, because now they can't sell what they're bringing up because it's contaminated, it's got mutations, it's just wrong is what they have done. I can't even play this whole thing unless I do it in the same parts, and the first part's not as good as the second part where he talks about his experiments, which I guess I'll have to go there and show you the experiments This is back to Rense. I'm going to part 2, because part 2 even says more. And this is part 2.
And now the application of Corexit continues. I guess what, around the clock? What's the primary means of delivery? Still by aircraft?
Well, they've become more stealth at that, but up into even December of 2011, there were people in Mississippi that were taking pictures of C-130s and C-120s, which is a smaller version of the C-120.
Yes, yes.
It's actually a little more maneuverable when you get around a coastline. So they use the C-120s when they get close to the coastline, and there were pictures of those applying Corexit. It seems as though they've really got it going underneath the water more than anything.
How are they doing that? Just by boats? They have boats out there, and they've got what, nozzles that are sticking under the back of the boat, and they just drive around with the nozzles 10 feet under the water and just disperse it that way?
Well, what's left of what they've done is when the spill occurred, and here's one thing that most people don't realize is that you had a well blowout on April 20th of 2010. That did not cause the spill. And we pointed out to several people that there were explosions on April 22nd that actually caused the spill. And we've asked people what would have caused those explosions on April 22nd. And no one knows. It wasn't part of the well blowout because they'd already brought that under control.
Yes.
So we're not sure what caused that. But once that occurred, you had several or numerous fractures and fissures and cracks form in the kind of loose sediment and salt dome. They were actually drilling next to a salt dome.
Yes.
And once they fractured that, there's no repairing it.
Well, I understand. Steve, I remember seeing the really extraordinarily accurate diagrams, computer-generated graphics, depicting what that salt dome looks like and where they were drilling. They knew when they began to drill there of the tremendous pressure that was in there. They were, I think, trying to bring home a granddaddy of all the Gulf wells, and they took a chance, and they blew it. Is that a fair statement?
It would seem so, yes.
Yeah. And there is, again, as you said, no way to go down there and shut that down. There's just too much natural pressure. This is an enormous reservoir of oil, gas, and it's like, when they cracked it open, there's no way to turn it off again. It's really that simple. I
actually had someone, an engineer, describe it to me that once they created those cracks and fissures, I was told that they actually tried to cement the things in. And I was told that it would be like trying to glue two pieces of paper together with Elmer's glue after coating them with Crisco oil. It's just not going to happen.
Wow. I remember all the lateral potential pathways for the oil to move laterally and then burst out in new cracks and fissures as well, almost like a Christmas tree as it came up. That was another potential. I don't know, and we don't know if that's happened or not, and your guess is that it's just primarily coming out of the original site of the disaster, or is it proliferating and coming up in multiple locations? What do we think?
Well, we were told that they actually tried to cement in the original hole, and once they did, it really forced the oil to start coming out of the different cracks and fissures.
Yeah, it sent it laterally and horizontally. It backed up the pressure and forced it through the strata of the geology there. They are thin and thick and porous and non-porous. In other words, as the oil came up, it moved horizontally until it found an outlet rather than straight up and out the original burst wellhead.
Correct. And some of these cracks and fissures are up to a mile long.
That's what I've heard.
It's a little crack. They're a mile long. And how do you ever stop oil from coming out of that?
You don't. You have to wait until all the pressure in that enormous salt dome eventually subsides, which could be anybody's guess. 1,000 years, 100 years, 50,000 years. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. We're talking to Steve Pedigo about the Gulf, and we're going to come back and talk about his company and his concept of a bioremediation, an environmentally safe way to go after hazardous waste dumps like this. It's not hazardous waste. This is an environmental catastrophe. It's not on the scale of Fukushima, of course, which could literally wipe out civilization as we know it, at least in the northern hemisphere, with the collapse of just one spent fuel pool. That's how bad Fukushima is. By the way, an update on the oil spill in Louisiana. ExxonMobil has shut down the pipeline that has been leaking at least 80,000 gallons of crude. They don't know how much, and they always underestimate these things, so it could be quite a bit more than that. 22-inch pipeline delivers crude to Exxon Baton Rouge refinery and 4 others. They say the spill was contained in the immediate area around Torbert, Louisiana. Well, time will tell. Meantime, just for fun, BP is talking about a return to grandeur in the Gulf. But the fishermen there will tell you differently. Their businesses are destroyed. And you got shrimp with no eyes, you got deformed fish. It's grim. Talking to Steve Pedigo about his organization, OSEI. All right, Steve, tell us about how your product works, what it does, and why the government isn't using it.
Well, our product basically emulates Mother Nature's own process. We just found a way to speed up what Mother Nature will do in 20 to 30 years on her own, as long as you don't add Corexit to it. We found a way to speed it up, to clean it up in 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks, depending on the temperature.
Now you're talking about surface oil or oil that's down underneath that has been turned into a different viscosity because of the Corexit?
Well, it's funny you mention that. During the BP spill, and so while BP, has this colossal problem on their hands, they did do a few things, as well as the Governor General, Senator Crow, Senator from Louisiana, then Senator Galat from Mississippi, and Senator Irwin from Alabama, and the city of Destin. They all requested the use of OSD2, and BP did as well, and the EPA turned them down. In fact, there was a Black Hawk helicopter ready to take me and some of my associates in LADEQ to Chandelier Island on May 6, 2010, which is an important date. That's when the oil first started hitting the barrier islands of Louisiana. Governor Jindal wanted us to go do a demonstration, and the EPA shut the whole thing down. Well, so what happened was BP kind of picked up, and what they decided to do was to test the bioremediation products on the NCP list. So they tested OSD2, and we ended up being the best product they tested. And not only did they test us on their oil, they tested us on their oil with Corexit in it. And
it still worked.
And we remediated it 90% in about 4 weeks to CO2 and water.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Now, you say the governor was witness to this, and who else?
They actually called it the BCS Strike Force Team, which was a conglomerate of professors from Tulane University, LSU, a group of professors out of California, LADEQ, NOAA, BP scientists, and Governor Jindal's office. And they were all part of this testing. And in fact, once the testing had completed and they had discovered that OSD2 was the best product, the Department of Interior, without our knowledge, took OSD2 and actually compared us. And this was an interesting little test once we discovered they had done it. And they put it on the internet and never even alerted us. But they tested OSD2, both Corexit 9500 and 9527, and mechanical cleanup on dielectric oil for Nantucket Sound. And dielectric oil is the oil they put in the wind turbines to create wind energy.
Got it.
And the Corexit product, because the temperature was a little cooler, neither one of them proved to even be capable of sinking oil at those temperatures. The mechanical cleanup got up its normal 2 to 8%, and we remediated 67%. So the Department of Interior proved beyond a shadow of a doubt what response is the most effective. And so what I was alluding to is that BP, after testing OSD2 and proving it out, they had wanted to perform a demonstration with not only OSD2, but even some of the other products that didn't fare as well, and the EPA shut the whole thing down. Because of that, and because of the Department of Interior's test, I ended up sending a formal request to the EPA Regional Response Team 6, asking them for pre-approval. In other words, I want the same access to oil spill cleanup that they've given Exxon's product, corrects it. And I want an immediate authorization either for BP or for the state to utilize OSC2.
And now you see what's going on.
And now the application is correct.
And that's what's happening. Until next time, this is Spellbinder saying be good at it. And you can see the EPA is evil and needs to be disbanded. Good day.